So my last video that I did was an oldie, a kind of refresh or return to an old but um, oldie but goodie, right? With the Tarot of Hidden Realms. But this time I actually want to take a look at an oracle that I purchased. It had to have been, I don't know when this came out, but it was before I moved. So I'm guessing, like a year and a half ago. It says 2023. I didn't get it, I don't think, in 2023. But anyways, I think I purchased this, if I were to guess, before I moved. I know there were a few decks that I had come in just before I all of a sudden had to go into like completely going through my apartment and all the stuff that comes with moving within a month. So this is one I've been kind of re-going through everything and organizing, and I have a couple of those kinds of decks where I haven't even looked at them. They have just been in a box of things that I wanted to review before I open them up and use them. I do tend to be a kind of person that, because I did do, I suppose it's been a while, but I do reviews. Um, I'm the kind of person who that whole process of reviewing has become sort of how I kind of introduce myself to the deck. And so that has been missing. So sorry if you hear Belle gruffing in the background. I don't, may not pick it up, but it sounds like it might. I'm not sure what she hears. It's late and quiet, but she hears something. So, anyways, the reason that I picked this up is that, going back to oldies but goodies, one of my first decks outside of the one that I had for 9.5 years was the Shadowscapes Tarot, which is the artwork by Stephanie Poo Law, I think is how she used to go, but it's just showing Stephanie Law. So, that that deck was sort of how I really leaned into. I mean, I used it for everything, but at the same time I kind of was purposefully utilizing it for um, learning the Rider-Waite Smith. I was also there's a lot of healing work that was done with it, because it was like a whole year after I had split up from a 23-year marriage. So I was on my own for the first time. Like there was a lot of things that were happening. And so there's a lot of, I have a lot of connection. Maybe I need to do a return to the Shadowscapes tarot. I think she has another tarot deck. I have not got that yet. I don't believe I purchased a deck in 2025. Other than that's not true. I think the only deck I purchased was a Sibylla deck. I have a bunch of all my Sibylla decks out and want to do a video on that deck that's come out with an English guidebook, but neither here nor there. But this is a new to me because I have not used it. And so the deck is written by, or the guidebook is written by Angie Sullins, and the artwork is by Stephanie Law. When you open it up, of course, you see her beautiful artwork. I love her use of color. I love her use of texture. I love her videos on painting. I should have pulled it out, but it's behind me. I'm not going to go get it because I fell down the stairs a couple weeks ago, and my foot is just starting to be able to hobble around without a scooter, and it takes too much effort. But she had a long time ago like a mini ceramic set with the little tiny wells that I still use and love today. So I love her artwork. There's a lot of detail to it, and I think that's one of the reasons some people maybe find her artwork busy in the Shadowscape Tarot. I've certainly heard that, but she's got an interesting, her style is got lots of little things that I find almost works in a scrying sense. That you're pulling, like I can pull a card. I've used Shadowscapes a ton over, over the years, and every time like a different small thing would kind of pop up as being important. So if you treat the cards in a, yes, cartomancy, but also in a bit of a scrying way, I just find her artwork is amazing for that. So anyways, as legend and druids can tell you, there are places on the planet where the veil between worlds is thin, and the trees are guardians of these sacred spaces. So we have this again called the Tree Keepers Oracle. Obviously, we have the guidebook here, which we, oh, look at that. How beautiful is that? So we have a full, don't, please don't have, breathe if you can't stand the breaking of a spine, but I need to open a book. I'm a big fan of breaking spine, not breaking them, but stretching them. This, oh, look at that. That's amazing. I actually pulled this out when I was looking at, I recently, or I'm wrapping up a class on working with your ancestors, like full class. I have a workshop on it, but that was way back when I first started doing workshops. So anyways, we were looking at different decks that are good for different reasons, and this is such an amazing one. I think just from the style of it and just kind of looking through it lightly, that you can pull one card, as this isn't the kind of, like, I can't imagine pulling three keepers. I'm just like, I wouldn't pull three weavers from the three weavers, or from the weavers oracle. This is a kind of deck on first glance, and we'll see when we get to the end of it, but on first glance, this is a kind that I would pull as, who is somebody that is, you've kind of stepped up to an ancestor or a guardian of some kind that is going to walk with you, or that you're going to sit with, versus having multiple keepers, unless they're very specific. Like you might pull one for clarity, for the branches of the tree, maybe one for the trunk and navigating physical world, and then maybe one for the roots as a message from your ancestor. I don't know. That's just where my brain is playing. But anyways, that's just kind of my first impressions. Now I do notice, because again, I have just quickly looked at it, it's when I was going through things, they're not specific trees. So it is the Tree Keeper's Oracle, but these are, the keeper of sol, of themes. There isn't specific trees tied to this. So you're not going to get like, this is the birch tree, which is the keeper of rebirth, or something like that. So it's not actual trees. More it's the energy and the, like kind of like you're approaching a crystal, and you're getting the vibration of what that does, or you're approaching like flower essence, where you get that real ephemeral vibration of, this is the energy that you're sitting with. This is more about the energetic signature than a specific actual tree, I suppose. Anyways, let's see. So we have the introduction, which is, I'm assuming, by let's just see what she says. Long ago, before trees were used for their pulp and fiber to hold our stories in bound form, they were protectors of a different kind. As legend and druids can tell you, there are places in the planet where the veil between worlds is thin, and the trees were guardians of those sacred spaces. During that age, if one was lucky, one might encounter a door in the trunk of a tree. Agree? A portal between worlds where magic bleeds from one dimension to another. Magic wasn't considered spellcraft or supernatural. What was called magic was simply the songs, art, dreams, and inspiration of one world flowing into another. The trees kept records of these magic, and the tree keepers kept sacred watch over the trees. Over time, the tree keepers gained much wisdom. They couldn't help it. As magic seeped to the trees, it bled into the ground on which these tree keepers stood and took up residency in their souls. Having been imprinted by the flow of stories, love that, they were considered the librarians of the other worlds. Hush, boy, she's speaking my language. Each tree keeper became a living oracle, embodying the four elements of their own world, plus the fifth element, and I don't know how to say that. I've seen the word, but that's the portal or the door. The Durwa, I'm sure that is not pronounced correctly, that portal where dreams move across dimension is an element akin to love. It is the all-encompassing wisdom that encourages every soul to remember that there are perspectives beyond the one immediately available on reality's surface. Sometimes a door is more than a door. Sometimes a tree is more than a tree, and sometimes you are more than you know, able to access the moreness, I love that, shimmering on the other side of your circumstances. There is always more chances, more grace, more forgiveness, more perspectives, more magic than you currently glimpse. The tree keepers knew this truth and shared it with seekers lucky enough to encounter them. I was one such seeker. Though many of the trees have long since been cut down, their groves destroyed, the tree keeper's legacy remains alive in places where rivers run silver with myth and where fairy tales are still spoken under the light of the moon. The contents of the oracle were entrusted to me from a tree keeper in Lapland who guarded one of the ancient reindeer forest groves. One evening, under a billowing curtain of aurora borealis, while night settled like a sigh on the shoulders of a mountain, the tree keeper gifted me with her legacy book, an image of a reindeer carved into its wooden cover. The teachings in this deck are distilled from that tome. And then it goes in to talk about how to use it. Um, it seems to be pulling one card, which I do think, again, this is the kind of deck that you would be pulling one card from. And then, of course, it goes into each of the cards. And we'll take a look at one of those. I'll maybe wait and do that one because that one has really caught my attention. So I'm going to turn it over here. And when we get to that one, we'll take a look. It does come with a little bag to put it in. I would keep it obviously in the box itself. It's a sturdy box as all. We used to talk a lot about boxes because they used to be huge and unsturdy. Now, I mean, they're pretty much gonna, if they're mass market, they're gonna come out this way. Look at that. I don't know if that's one of the cards or not. Her artwork is such an amazing, again, I really work at this, and I'm obviously a dabbler, but I really love the textures that she achieves with watercolor. That is something I really, really love. But then really light and ephemeral things of that watercolor it does, lots of places of light, but then she gets real textury and I just love it. So I don't know if that's a card or not, but it should be. So that's that. Here's the back. This is, what is this? This is US Games. Don't quote me on that. Yeah, this is a US Game System deck. It is gilded. I'm not a huge fan of gilding. I'm a riffle shuffler, so good gilding holds up under riffle shuffling. I have some decks that have been riffle shuffled away, and gilding has held up really beautifully. But it makes me a little nervous on more of a mass market deck that gilding would hold up. But I also don't mind my decks looking like they've been used. So. Um, Here is the back, which is beautiful. I love how you can see through to the tree inside of the tree here. It is reversible for those that matters, and just beautifully done. So really pretty, which I expect with, again, her artwork. Let me get a zoom in here. Sorry, I should have paused it. Standing up is difficult with one leg. Okay. And here we have it nice and close up. It is pretty standard in terms of glossiness, but I will say it's it's definitely glossy. But there are some decks that I really struggle with glossiness because I bounce light onto my reading table. And so there are some decks that are so glossy that it doesn't film well. and it actually can give me a headache when I'm looking at this, not on the camera. I'm not getting any kind of bounce back into my eyes, and the color is nice and vibrant. So that's a big plus. So okay, so let's. I mean, I guess we still need to have the. Oh, that one's beautiful too. Okay, I am I am skipping ahead here. I guess we'll read this one because it's a shorter one, just so you can see, and then I'll probably, me look at other ones as well. So, oh, see, this is not the right. Oh, I love that one too. Okay, okay. Keeper of self love. Many of us forget to include ourselves in the acts of loving kindness. 100% agree. I think I have a video on utilizing like meditation, like not meditation beads or meditation, not uh, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Uh, where you use knots and you create sort of a meditation, almost like a rosary. I have a video on that, and I utilize those for doing loving kindness. But you really do need to include yourself in that because we are usually so hard on ourselves. Human beings are hardwired for both love and struggle. One of the best ways to practice resilience between the two is through self compassion. I really like that term. I almost wish that said self compassion, because I do think this term self love has kind of gotten a little bit um, watered down, where you kind of are like, oh, do we going to talk about self love again? Like it shouldn't be, but it kind of has that connotations of like, well, practice self love, go get a manicure, or those kinds of things where it's like self compassion, I think, or self grace, which is not a good term. That doesn't even sound right, but that's kind of the key, right? Um, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting her writing over and over. One of the best ways to practice resilience between the two is through self compassion. This moment asks you to focus all of the patience and support and love that you give everyone else onto yourself. Put your arms around your inner self with all the gentleness you can muster. Consider this: you are the only you in the entire universe. You deserve to experience love from the inside out, independent of what the world offers or takes away. Nothing can change your inherent value. It's golden. Treasure it with kind thoughts. So this is interesting because one of the questions that I have, I don't know uh, if let's see if it says here. I don't know if the artist released, maybe to use from her body of images to make a deck, or if the cards were made for if the paintings were made for the cards. Does that make sense? So obviously, I think we'll see that more as we go on. I'm looking here on the back sometimes. Yeah, it doesn't say. Or sometimes like we have like, you know, Miss Law had like a series of cards that could be used for cards, and then they got a writer to kind of pull it all together. There's different ways in which these things are published. I don't see anything particular here except for, like, to me these look like lotuses, which have those connotations. For me, I do have a lotus tattoo, but it's about seeing myself um, through all, not just in the high points, not just in the low points, but in all, having grace through all of the movements up and down the stem. Those aren't floating on water, but that's what they make me think of. I'm sure they're like magnolias or something. I also do, though, really like the shape of the tree because it has that sort of curling inward that does feel like that. So again, I'm not saying that it wasn't made or was, but it's something that we look at with oracle decks because sometimes they're images that are just kind of pulled together, and they can work when done really well, and then sometimes that kind of makes it like, okay, I don't really see what you're talking about in the card, where I can see that, especially in the shape of that um, tree there. But again, absolutely beautiful. artwork. And there's not going to be, I'm sure, I mean, maybe I'll surprise myself, but there's not going to be, I don't think, a card that I won't say is absolutely beautiful. Um, Here we have the Keeper of Abundance. I really like, so what jumps out to me on this one is this bright, like this is all very vibrant in person. I don't know. Let me, for the sake of, we're doing a walkthrough here, um, pull it onto my other monitor, which has got better in terms of color. I can't see it close enough. I don't know if this is coming across as vibrant as it is. I would definitely recommend, going maybe to uh, US games to see some of the images, because they probably will kind of at least pull the color in. They're actually really beautiful and vibrant. Sometimes there are, and again, it's just the use of watercolor. Sometimes the watercolor can be really soft and pale and those kinds of energies. And but these are very bold and beautiful and vibrant. And so again, with bits of light and all the different nuance, but they are quite beautifully saturated. And so, but this really stands out. All of those bright colors, all of those kind of bold feathers. It looks like a cloak of like peacocks and, just abundance type of birds that really stands out quite beautifully. That's what jumps out with me for the Keeper of Abundance. But abundance is a great thing to come forward, because then you're again sitting with that energy of, with the sun in the background, really lighting everything up, which is an abundance symbol. All the yellow that's there as well has that gold, even the gold coin. So it definitely feels like that energy of sitting with the energy of abundance, which is quite beautiful. I adore this painting so much. I'm trying not to pick these up because I know some people get really annoyed with that, but she does have such, delicate, small things and scenes that you almost need to see it. I love this. You're getting the kind of cross um, cut of a well going down, and look at, do you see that? Look at the dinosaurs and the skeletons under there. That is amazing. It's the Keeper of Wishes. And look, she's dropping a coin in, and there's some kind of like a little bit of magic at the bottom there. That is amazing. I absolutely adore that. Again, I'm not going to read all of these, but I love this. You come to understand the importance of wishes when you live with trees. For every acorn contains the wish of a magnificent oak. Absolutely love that. Turn your what ifs into why nots, as if failure were not an option. I love that. And you got the wishing well, right? So beautiful. I love this in terms of comfort, right? That's different than self-love, because sometimes self-love is going to be really empowering, like you're giving yourself the grace to be empowered, you're giving yourself compassion so that you can walk empowered. And comfort is empowering, but not in the same way. Where this feels like, I mean, you've got a unicorn. Sorry folks, we're just picking the cards up. You've got a unicorn there. Look at, I don't know if you can, I don't know if it will focus. Uh, do you see, is that, I cannot see it even this close because I have bad eyesight, but I see a little sparrow, a little bird in this little notch here, also being sort of held in comfort by the tree. That's what I choose to see. Whether that's something else or not doesn't really matter to me. But this is beautiful. Again, I like, all of these are going to be beautiful, but in terms of comfort, it does speak of comfort, companionship, favorite blankets. It talks about this is the time for snuggling. We don't use the word snuggle enough. Snuggle, irregardless, snuggle, right? There's a lot of stress that comes in life. It talks about, and a lot of physical things cause stress. and giving comfort can it's utilizing comfort tools can regulate the nervous system, which I think is quite beautiful. Right, we want to be independent people who don't need to be snuggled, but sometimes we do. We talk about hug decks. Sometimes we need that. Look at this. Like, come on. Come on. I love this. Look at the clock up there and see how it's opened up with the gears and we have a um, grandmother clock that was in my great grandmother's house when I was growing up. She raised my dad, so she was around all the time. Or my grandpa, when we were over there, and so that just is so sweet. But look at the little girl. Oh, look, I don't know why I'm putting it there. The keeper of time. Again, this makes sense. If this comes up, it's just like, okay, let's pay attention to the movement of time, not to be bound by it, but to be aware of it and know when to step outside of time as well in some ways, or turn back the clock. I feel like there's a lot of things that I do a lot of my own personal oracle readings in the ancestral space. And so this kind of, with the little girl here, it's that kind of like sometimes we can turn back the clock and have grace for our little selves or our younger selves in different time periods in our life. That can be really powerful. But is this to tell us to step out of time? Or is this coming up to tell us to be mindful of the time that we have? Would be interesting, obviously, depending on the reading itself. Oh, this is beautiful. This is the Keeper of Whimsy. I love this. Although I don't think the tree looks super powerful. But see how it's got that little bit of flowers at the end. But see her, she's just sitting there on the edge of a wave, having a tea party. So you get that little bit of a Alice in Wonderlandy kind of, you're not in Kansas anymore feel, with that, just that little add of a teapot and a teacup and on the tip of the white of a wave, to allow whimsy and that kind of wonder into your space again. I know I have to speed up. I, as always, terrible at quickness. Here we have the Keeper of Balance, absolutely beautiful. We have kind of standing in like a tree pose. I'm sure that's not the tree pose because I think normally both your hands are together, so don't quote me. But if with the leg up like that, it has a feeling for me of like a tree pose, which is beautiful. But no matter what, on one foot, balanced. So that makes a lot of sense. The tree is amazing, absolutely amazing. Like this could be jumping into a portal there, but definitely see the balance. Here we have the Keeper of Ease. This is really beautiful, and she obviously looks like it. She's kind of lounging up in the tree. I spent a lot of my life, little self, lounging in trees and reading, which is quite beautiful. Let's take a peek. We weren't raised to work with the ebb and flow of energies. We were raised to determine a course of action, have a goal, and stick to it. The message has been if it's challenging, uphill, exhausting, or overwhelming, keep going. Suffer the hardship because it makes the reward so much sweeter. So this kind of reminds me, I have a deck I use a lot, the Illuminated Earth Oracle, that has a meander card, that sometimes like we don't have to have this dot to dot to dot and this kind of running the race, that it's okay to just be at rest and ease along the way. So I think that's actually a good card to have access to. Here we have the Keeper of Trust, a bit of a change in the sense of I got these. We've got that kind of zooming in close up image that we have here. Um, this is the guidebook is talking more about understanding, like an acorn, everything that you're supposed to become is already coded in, right? you have all of the building blocks of what you need to fully become the oak, to fully become yourself, and that you kind of have to trust that, trust in the process, trust yourself as well. I'm not convinced, to, I'll be honest with you. Some of them, I think probably it feels like, yeah, these probably were made for the card, but I'm not 100% convinced. And this is not, again, a negative. It can be when they're supposed to be cohesive and you're kind of pulling across a lot of cards, or again, that you want to get intuitive hits based off of the kind of the meaning, the name of the card matching the image of the card, so it's not discordant there. So, but it can, they can, pre-existing art for decks can be done really, really well. And the fact that I can't say for sure yet, I'm not, I couldn't make a call yet on that, although I have a feeling like it could have been, could be either way. And most likely I feel like it probably wasn't a kind of card by card, this was painted for this specific card. um, but again, I don't know that one way or another, and so who knows. I love this. I love the keeper of this shift. There's this very full energy, but like more powerful. Look at all that stuff around her, and look at her hand. Like this is like, it's got the body curve and openness of a fool, but empowered, right? This is like the fool at the end of the journey, where now they're no longer the fool. There's just this still the openness, trustedness, still the willingness to fall, but because of pure power. This is a really strong visual card here. This is that, to really shake up, do something, take control and do something different. That is really quite powerful. Look at the look at this guy. Am I seeing that wrong? Is that a guy in there? Oh, yeah, look at him peeking out. Look at all of these faces. I love this image, but I feel like that could have been something really interesting. Other than, yes, this speaks of nurturing, but that's got some other stuff going on that's pretty cool. Let's see if it's anything mentioned about those faces. Nope, it's kind of just, I think, focusing on this internal space. That's very, even though the image, like in the guidebook, has that kind of that factor there, but it's just focusing on the nurture. Maybe that, like, there can be so many things you could read it as. There can be so many things that could distract you and pull you away from that. But staying focused on that nurturing energy. Either way, the image is amazing. Love this. Absolutely. I like play cards. I think they're amazing to have. But look at her up in that swing. I would really like that to be me. I adore the door in that tree. Everything about that is absolutely stunning. Love it. See, again, this kind of her, I would love maybe a whole deck like this, because you think like her art is so beautiful and generally so full of light. Oh, I love that. So full of light and color, right? I think that you could take her artwork as being more whimsical in a way, but oh, can you imagine? It kind of would remind me of like was the Rackham deck, or there's another older illustrator. Like, I would love a whole deck of these kind of tones, um, just because I think she does them um, incredibly well. Like, that's like Gandalf going off on a journey. I absolutely love that. Anyways, absolutely stunning, stunning, stunning. Here we have the Keeper of Stars. She do have stars up in the top. I love, she does do like wings. I don't really think of her things as angel wings. Like they seem to be all to me more fey birds wings. But it talks about hope, light, um, wishing on a star. Do you have the energy to wish? Always to keep a star in your heart, kind of a hope that can be difficult, right? Once we have had so many hits and so many hard things that come, it comes harder to keep that starlight, star bright. You know, first stars I see tonight, like making a wish on a star, becomes harder as we have taken, you know, a lot more damage and become more garter. So you can kind of, even though we have a different wish card, um, but you can, you know, that sense of keeping that space. It's not so much keeping the wish. I would see this as much as it is keeping yourself in the position of being able to see the stars. And you know, sometimes when we're going through a lot of things, we're in this bubble where we can't even see the stars. All we can see is what's happening. And this to me feels more like it's guarding that. I love this keeper of sleep. I love the snake here, because it's more, that's more of the guardian energy, right, of healing and transformation and the healing power of sleep. I have insomnia, very bad insomnia, and so I know how bad lack of sleep is and how important it is for healing. So I really, that combination I think is fantastic. I don't know what these are, like magpies. I feel like this type of bird with the black and the white. I mean, it may not be a specific bird, but it reminds me of some type of bird I've seen. I feel like she uses them quite often in her artwork, and I think they're absolutely stunning. And I love this with the alchemy, and I love the swirling and the mixing. This is very, oh, her and Shadowscape, her temperance, which is alchemy, you know, that can be called. I use the term alchemy and the temperance card in my decks. And you know, where you, her shadowscapes, where she is melding the yin and the yang energies together. You have this very active energy, and then this very more circling water energy here. And the alchemy of bringing those two things together is the power on when to use which. So I think it's really beautiful. Love it. Oh, this is here. I'm so glad. I would have been so, oh, look at that. Shoo-wee. Um, I love this. 100% love this. Everything about it. It's the keeper of fairy tales. All of the lessons that we can learn, all of the magic of fairy tales, all of the belief that, I mean, this is just amazing. Absolutely love. This is stunning. Very Morgan Le Fay kind of feel to it, but obviously also high priestessy, going down into the depths, to keep listening to your intuition, understanding and hearing your intuition, powerful enough to trust your intuition. Really, I'm just kind of riffing off the image, but that is such a powerful card. Again, love these dusky tones in some of these. Look at that. That's beautiful. Kind of the opposite with all the light. Very swordsy, keeper of truth, justicey, really now shining a light on things and being willing to face the truth. Very beautiful. Absolutely love this. I love her art so much. Look at the door and the tree and the little thing going up and the little leaf boat here. I love a flow card. It's great. Like sometimes just go where it flows. What is that called in the Winnie the Pooh things where they do the stick game? I think there's a name for it, but where they toss the sticks in and then kind of follow where they're going to race. But it's it's not anything you have any control over. You're just flowing. Absolutely love. This is really cool. Very mushroomy feeling. Look at that. Doesn't that seem more? I know it's a tree, but it has a very mushroom energy here. Very subconscious, very almost surrealistic. I mean, all of hers have a slight feel of that, but this one more than the others. Like this, you do feel like you're like down in a cave system. Really cool. Actually, love that. This is so, I love this so much. Oh, look at that one. There is a keeper of grace. That's amazing. Because I do, grace is a word. I think if I had like a life word, maybe it would be serenity. But if I had a life word, I think having grace for others, for self, I just think grace is such a, and I'm skipping, sorry. We'll come back to that. But I love that there is a keeper of grace. Okay. Keeper of boundaries. Love this. Very king energy. I see kings as boundary keepers. Love that powerful cat. But then you've got the foxes there as well. But he definitely seems like he's holding the boundaries. Although, you know what it makes me think of? Have you guys watched the cartoon movie Quest for Camelot? And the main character is blind and kind of runs through the forest, but he is like in tune with the forest. I can't remember his name, but the soundtrack is amazing. It's by one of my favorite Irish bands back in the day called The Corrs. It was a family group. If you haven't seen the movie, see the movie. Now, I haven't watched it forever. I hope it's not one of those that you remember it better than it was. But, anyways, love this. Love the kind of king boundary keeping energy. This is so powerful. Interesting with it with grace. Let me just see what this one says. Um, Standing your ground is essential right now. The tree, oh no, that's the keep your boundaries. While a capitalistic system that profits from you feeling less than would have you believe that true strength comes by force, the tree keepers would have you understand that prowess and power come from balance, the interplay between an active will and a surrender to what is. That's kind of more the alchemy for me. But when we refuse to take things personally and see ourselves as part of the living organism of nature, we can accept what is. Between these opposite energies lives the golden thread of grace and the fierce, tender heart of surrender. Very interesting write up for grace. I would have to sit with that, but I like the visual of being you're part. We're not something separate, right? We are something that is part of the whole, and so that when we can step back and see ourselves as part of the whole, I think we can have more grace for each other, for ourselves. Sorry. But see what I'm talking about? If it was focused, see the, I think I've used some, I've watched a lot of her just like art videos, but I think she also uses ink washes and then starts to, excuse me, watercolor over the top. But look at that texture. I absolutely love that texture at the bottom there. Really powerful. Um, Here we have the keeper of anger. This is an interesting one with the skull. I think that's a skull there. Yeah, holding the skull. But like she doesn't look at all, right? She's holding on to the anger, which is all in the head, right? We don't need to embody our angers, don't need to become a piece of ourselves, is how I would probably read that image. But there's so much light and even really softness. For as gritty as her cards can be, or not gritty, but textured, there's a lot of light and softness here. And yet she's holding that skull, which I think is interesting, and I think works. This doesn't really speak to the image. A lot of them don't, which again, some of them will point to pieces, but they don't all point to this. So there's not any talk about the skull or anything, which again kind of leans me towards thinking this wasn't a deck where the images were made specifically for the cards. And so, but this to me, like you can really lean into that energy because this is the keeper, and let the keeper hold your anger versus it becoming sort of embedded into your very bones is how I would probably read that. This is stunning. You can really see, like, I mean, I love Shadowscape. I'll be interested in her tarot deck, her new tarot deck. I haven't watched any walkthroughs of it. I don't tend to if I know that I'm going to get it, and this is definitely one I want to get. Um, Shadowscape was, I don't know when that came out. I should pull the box out, but I don't think I have it in the box. I think I have it in a bag. I don't know when that came out, but again, her art's very recognizable to Shadowscape, and yet obviously she has grown as an artist, and not grown because I think her other stuff was amazing, but you can definitely see a shift as she explores her medium and all that kind of and what she wants to say through her art. And you can definitely see that some of these more closer up ones, I don't think you see a lot of in Shadowscape. Um, I love that there's a keeper of endings. I like the darkness here, but then this bright spot. I love the stones around her head. I don't know, there's just something so, again, that lotus feel of understanding that we have all of it. We have the light and the shadow and everything in between. I don't know, it's just really beautiful. I love that. This is really sweet as well. Keeper of the sanctuary, but it's kind of like a sanctuary of trees and branches and kind of has a nesty feel to it that I think really works. Too, like we have some, I believe we saw masks, a lot of little masks and things and hearts. I know a lot in Shadowscape um, there, but again, I don't know that. Uh, let's see that kind of thing is mentioned. It doesn't seem to. Yeah, it's not mentioning anything about the mask. I love this for the Keeper of Focus because it very much looks like an owl, and the mask just kind of highlights that in a powerful way. I love the keys there. The key is to focus. So I think that looks really beautiful. Here we have the Keeper of Creativity. This is interesting because I could have seen like the piano one could have been there, but you kind of has that like there we've got almost like a pan playing the flute there. She almost looks like she's orchestrating a little bit of a Bacchusy feel too, if that makes sense. A little bit of that. The colors inside you must be expressed. So it's really about like letting it flow, like just letting it play, letting it out. Um, so yeah, this isn't probably my absolute, the only thing that we can certainly see, but we have all of these kind of energies that are just being who they are and are kind of opening. And you could see kind of like, I don't know, Midsummer's Night Eve and those kind of, it has a bit of a nod, I feel like like Shakespeare's, that kind of Shakespeare play. Again, thinking of like Midsummer's Night Eve or something like that. That's what I would lean into there. Here we have the Keeper of the Wild, which is really beautiful. I love all of the animals here, and look at that. Do you see the keeper in the doorway? Look at all of the foxes. Really beautiful. Love the tangle of the tree and the melding into the branches into this kind of energy with dragonfly wings. I love this. Look at that. That reminds me of like the Tarot of Hidden Realms, like the Shadow Dancer and the Devil card. Really beautiful. Love that so much. Definitely has very fey energy of the dance. That's really beautiful. Again, love, love, love these dark toned cards. Keeper of the Invisibles. I love that name. Let's see what they say about that. Whether you believe in mythic creatures, guardian angels, or spirit guides, you do have forces moving on your behalf. 100% agree. They guard and guide your soul journey. If you're aware of them, now is the time to contact them. Inquire, investigate, ask for their help. If you don't yet know who they are, suspend your disbelief. Call and conjure them in the quiet spaces. compel them to come to your aid by confessing your belief in them. I don't think that I would compel certain things. I would certainly ask. Unseen forces thrive on belief, expand in your presence. Whether in relaxation, prayer, meditation, dream work, or active imagination, invite the invisibles to engage with you. I like all of the, like, there's so much around us that we don't see. Look, oh, okay, I just saw him. I didn't see her up there. I don't know if you did. Look at that. That does feel like a calling on the forces. Again, we need to be careful, but that's really powerful. Keeper of beginnings. Gotta have a beginnings. I like that we've got the kind of seed root there, and then it's turning, and we've got that butterflies and transformation and fresh beginnings of that phase. But it doesn't, like, that's not a beginning, right? That would be a caterpillar, right? And so it's like the beginnings, it's a cycle of beginnings that I think is really powerful. Keeper of sharing. I really love her up there holding the bowl up. This is like a willow tree. I'm obsessed with willow trees. I've said it too many times. Dandelions and willow trees. It's just like she's got a whole world in her roots, and wherever there's like round shapes, like when you really zoom in, they're so amazing. Keeper of the game. That's an interesting one. She's playing like a chess game there with the tree. I love that. But that's a really cool card to have come up, right? Because we do have to be smart. We do have to make our moves sometimes. Sometimes we want to, um, play smart, play wise, make the move right, make the right move. I'm not saying that's what they call that in this. Um, Playing the game of life requires you to know when to confront as well as to retreat. This moment challenges you to stand in your power and confront what seems overwhelming. Um, so on and so forth. But yeah, I mean, that to me is quite a powerful card that could come up. Keeper of perceiving, your perceptions. I love all of her swing ones. Oh, look at the clockwork underneath it. Oh, receiving. Sorry, I read perceiving. Keeper of receiving. That's an interesting one. Again, that to me doesn't super scream like that card was made for this. The key to feeling grounded is to dig deep in your soul's soil to know your worth. Let the blessings come to you by cultivating receptivity rather than solving, caregiving, rescue, or fixing. It's about reciprocity. A tree doesn't seek out squirrels or birds to shelter. It doesn't uproot itself to follow every weary traveler, offering shade, nor does it conjure sun or rain to grow itself. It simply is, allowing reciprocity to occur. Do the work to discover your inherent worthiness, root down deep into it. Yeah, this is an interesting one. Like I like having the card, a keeper of receiving, to be open and receptive. I don't, and I love the image, but I don't particularly see receiving in, I suppose, in the image itself, but it's beautiful. um Keeper of innocence. That's an interesting one. Look, we have that kind of innocence there, and the stag meeting the and the birds, but and then that, and then look at this little guy down here. I don't know, I feel like this could have been a different card. But you do, like, you see that there's that movie where, like, a girl is like traveling. Is it the snow, is it a remake of Snow White, where like she's running and they're running through this scary forest and all this stuff, and then they come sort of into this really beautiful, because Snow White kind of has that focus on innocence, and they're looking for, I don't know if it's the white stag they're looking for, I don't know. There's a movie like that that this reminds me of, which would definitely let me, and just the belief in things that are different, and magic and fae and all of that, that works. So it's quite beautiful. Look at this. This is so different. Um, the Keeper of Forgiveness. I love this. I love the bleeding look here. I love the umbrellas, but it is a very different. Like, he looks like he's got a more modern hat, and the jacket and the cane. Like, I absolutely love this image, but it definitely has a different flavor to it. But I like the bleeding, and there's so much shadow down here when we hold on to things and we don't release them to fly up. And again, it's not anything about the other person or situation. It's really for yourself. Do you want to just see, you know, trying to hold the book so it keeps in one hand, but if you're only seeing this versus being able to really see the light up there, I think that's pretty cool. I love that. Love this. Just the image. I don't even Keeper of Wonder. Yes, 100%. Kind of goes to me a little bit with Keeper of Fairy Tales. Like, I see wonder in fairy tales, but fairy tales are about a lot more than that. So I definitely don't mind having both the cards, but this is 100% works with that card. And love this. Keeper of Transformation. Look at the butterflies. Be a very cool Queen of Air, even, wouldn't it? I love the scrolling upward. I love the light. Yeah, this is quite beautiful. Again, all of them are beautiful. Keeper of Follow Through. That's interesting. I think that is the image, like a reverse image of that one we read the poem on, which is great because those images were beautiful in the poems. And yeah, I think it's either another study. I think it's just flipped. You know how you just flipped in the other way. It looks a little different though. This is more night, but this is probably a study of a similar, obviously, um, image there. But I'm glad that we have that because it is quite beautiful. But again, see all of her there's that mask in there, that little shadow creature in there. Her stuff is so layered. And I think even more so than with Shadowscape. Again, they're different decks. I'm not expecting it. I don't, nor do I want it to, but I think it's quite powerful. Let me find this last one. It's time to follow through. No amount of dreaming, intending, or progress making can bring a goal to fulfillment. You must honor your promises, follow through the action. Again, this doesn't, I guess it's that keep moving forward you could go with. That energy of keep moving forward. You can't, nothing's going to happen if you're not actually taking action. I think I would have liked maybe a bit more of like feeling of action, although she's walking. So how much more action do you need to have? But it's beautiful. And I do like how, like, sometimes it's like, okay, look, all the stuff is great. Having moments of just relaxing, having moments of stuff, all these things are great, but sometimes we need to like actually follow through on what we say, what we want, what we dream, or it's not going to happen by doing nothing. So I like having that kind of card in the deck. So there we have it. Absolutely stunning. Very happy to have the deck. Again, what I thought, at the beginning is true still at the end. I don't see any reason. I mean, let's just see. I don't think I would ever pull 3 cards from this. I think it's functions probably best as pulling 1 card. I think you could pull it in the middle and then get more information with other cards, sort of the center of an energetic web, or cast on it, like find the keeper and cast on it. I think that those kinds of things that, a well-functioning single card deck, because you could start with, like the Keeper of Innocence, and then you could pull, either other cards about how to connect with whatever keeper came up. Like, I could see a spread around this type of a deck, but I don't really see like why I don't see myself using this in even a 3 card pull, because they're really looking for the energy is of keepers. These are kind of guardian energies that are coming in, Now, maybe if you paired them with the Keeper of Innocence who's telling you this, a Keeper of Surrender who's, maybe paired it with another card. But if I were to read these in a row, right, you need to maintain your innocence so you can surrender, but then keep, like, I just don't think that, to me, this wouldn't, and I'm sure that anybody can use a deck to read however they want. But for me personally, I think one of the things that, when we talk about utilizing oracle decks, one of the key points I think of utilizing an oracle deck is understanding what the decks are good at. Because if you use a deck that's really meant to kind of pull a single card and then maybe pull other cards or cast on it or something like that, to build into the message. Um, if we try to use a deck that's really meant for a single pull, and multiple pulls, and then we kind of get kind of vague answers or messages, it's just because we're utilizing. Sometimes it's a bad deck, it's just not well put together deck, but sometimes it's just that we're using a deck that's not really meant for that. Like, I love Into the Lonely Woods. Like, that's not a deck for me that I would ever pull 3 cards. I don't even ever pull 3 Weavers cards, right? That's meant to hear that message and sit with that message. And so I could definitely see this in a part of other usages, like, again, at the center of the web, and maybe sort of what I need to hear, and then what do I need to do with it, whatever. Like, you could come up with utilizing other systems or other decks to build this into a bigger reading. But I think this is really powerful energy. Okay, this week or this month, what is the keeper that I'm sitting with, and what are the work am I going to do based off of the keeper that's showing up. Again, you could use it in ancestral readings as sort of what is the energy of an ancestor stepping forward, somebody who's trying to hold your abundance, help you hold your abundance, somebody who's going to help you to do that alchemical work of mixing things in order to become the core essence to become stronger. Somebody coming forward to help with your boundaries. Like, this is how I would utilize this kind of deck, and I think it would work really well that way. All right, I know that I'm sure this is way longer than it should be, or that even I intended it to be. So I'm going to stop. But, again, her artwork is absolutely stunning. I love these darker toned. I mean, I love all of them, but I really love the ones that have the shadows in them. I think they're so, so, so stunning. So yeah, absolutely beautiful. I'm glad that I got it, even though it took me this long to open it up. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day or week, whatever and whenever that might be.